Let's get into this week. It was a full week of football. The season is in full swing. So we're going to start off. We did it last Monday. We're going to start off with everybody's new favorite segment. It's Good Week and Bad Weekend. We did it last week. I enjoyed it. And it's a great way just to cover the top of college football. We don't have to deep dive into any of these games, but it's a great way to jump in and just get the top layer of what happened this week in college football. So first one up, we got good weekend, Auburn. They ended up with a win against Arkansas. Tough win, 33-24. Jackson Arnold ended up getting benched in the first half of that football game after a pick six. Just before halftime, he got dropped for Ashton Daniels, which Auburn fans had been calling for a while at this point. They just wanted to see what else they had at quarterback, whether it be Deuce Knight, which there's a story there that we can talk about, or an Ashton Daniels. And he played a good enough game. They went 6 for 8 for 77 yards, no touchdowns, but no picks either. The real thing that ended up winning this game for Auburn was their defense. They got 3 turnovers back to back against this Arkansas team who didn't. They played an okay game, but this Arkansas team, like Auburn, just isn't clicking on all levels. But ended up getting 3 turnovers, and that helped them pull away at the end. So good weekend for Auburn. Bad weekend, Auburn. So yeah, they had a good weekend. They got the win. But a lot of people thought that this was going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back in the way of Hugh Freeze. And I won't call them out by name, but there were definitely Auburn fans that I know that were cheering that this was going to be the day that they were going to lose to Arkansas and they were finally going to get on the right track as far as coaching goes. And it didn't happen. They ended up winning the game. Fair play to them. But do I think Hugh Freeze is the right fit for Auburn? I don't, if I'm being completely honest. And I think a lot of the fan base doesn't either. I think the higher ups see that and they know it's not the right fit. I think Hugh Freeze might think it's not the right fit. But they kind of put a Band-Aid over this for this weekend. So he saved his job. He's got himself another week after winning at Arkansas. But I think in the end, you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and do what Penn State did and do what Florida did and say, this isn't the right fit. Thank you for your service. Thank you for putting into this, all your coaching and all that stuff, all the time you've put in, but you're just not the right fit. It's time to move on. That's where I think Auburn needs to be. And again, they got the win this weekend. Would I be surprised if we see movement at the head coach spot Monday? No. But do I think it's going to happen now that they got the win? I don't. I think they wait until they get a reason to fire Hugh Freeze. Good weekend. Lane Kiffin. Now, Ole Miss ended up getting the win, and we will talk a little bit more about that later in the show. But I wanted to take a minute and talk about how good of a week and weekend it was for head coach Lane Kiffin. When you talk about names that have been thrown around in college football this past week, no guy has been talked about more than Lane Kiffin. His name being thrown in for the Florida job. He was reportedly offered $13 million per year, a deal equaling $81 million for the whole contract. That would make him the highest paid coach in the SEC. And he did address his team. It was either Friday or game day on Saturday, saying that it was a great compliment to his staff that he was being looked at for this job, and it was credit to his team and all this stuff. The one thing, I think the most important thing is not what he said, but it's what he didn't say. He never ended up denying that he was going to take the job. He never ended up saying, I'm going to stay at Ole Miss, from the quotes we read. Now, we don't know what goes on in that locker room. But from what I saw from the headlines, there was never him saying, I'm not taking the Florida job. I'm staying at Ole Miss. So with stuff like that, and Kiffin knows this, he's no stranger to the spotlight. He knows if he doesn't say, hey, I'm staying here, I'm not going to Florida, the rumors are going to continue to swirl. And maybe he's decided he already wants to take the job, but with Ole Miss, they have a real good shot at playoffs. So maybe he wants to stick it out for the rest of the season. Maybe the team already knows. Maybe they don't know. Heck, maybe he doesn't know at this point what he wants to do. But it's going to be a very interesting finish to the season and into the postseason. If Florida didn't already find a head coach, I'll be very, very curious to watch that Ole Miss camp and see what ends up happening there. Because I think Ole Miss Florida's a great fit for Lane Kiffin. That's a ton of money you're being offered. You'll be the highest paid coach in the SEC. and you just got your first win. You just got your first ranked away win in the SEC. While at Ole Miss, that feels crazy to me. That just doesn't sound real. I keep thinking back like, oh, there has to be a game. There hasn't been a game where he's won against the ranked team in the SEC with Ole Miss. So, I mean, that is a huge chunk of money. And another reason it's a good thing for Lane Kiffin, if they're offering that money, Ole Miss is trying to offer him a new contract with boosted money and boosted bonuses, all that kind of stuff. So, good week for Lane Kiffin. Bad weekend at Colorado. Bloodbath does not begin to describe what I watched in the first half of that football game. I'll start by saying I am not the biggest Deion Sanders guy. I'm not the biggest fan of Colorado. I think it's a lot of football culture that I don't necessarily enjoy, the clickbaity culture of Colorado. I felt bad for them in this game. 53-7 was the final score. Utah led 43-0 at halftime. Utah, before the half, had 400 yards of total offense with 50 plays run. Colorado, 33 plays, minus 18 yards of offense. It was a bad week for Colorado, to say the least. They had blocked punts. They had pick sixes. It was not a good week for Colorado and this Deion Sanders team. I don't know where they go from here. I don't think that Deion is in the hot seat. I know he's had a lot of medical problems, and I feel bad for the guy. It's just a really tough spot to be in with having surgeries every couple of weeks and you're not with your team full time. It's a hard spot to be in. I'll give him all the grace in the world. We'll see what happens at Colorado. I've not heard anything about them moving on from Deion Sanders, because I think without Deion, that program goes back to what it was before, which is a 3-9 team. I think they are better with Deion there because of the names and the people they can draw. But I just don't know, head coaching wise, if Deion is in the right spot to be a head coach at the moment. I'll say it like that, because again, I don't dislike the guy. I wish him the best in the best for his health and all that stuff. But right now, it's just not a good spot to be in Colorado. And I think that's why they get a lot of grace, because of the health stuff. And they have played games where they look decent, but that was a otherworldly beating that they took yesterday against Utah. Good weekend, Georgia Tech. I know a lot of people want to talk about Vanderbilt being a playoff contender and Pavia. You see the Heisman talk. I don't throw a lot into that. But if you want to talk Heisman talk, look at Haynes King. That dude is a dog at Georgia Tech. His stats from yesterday: 25 for 31, 304 through the air, 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 91 yards and 2 more touchdowns. He scored 5 total touchdowns. They're 8-0 in 8-0 on the season. They're 5-0 in ACC play. I think they're a real playoff contender. When you look at that schedule in the ACC, it's not all that hard. They have a real good shot of being in the ACC championship game. And even if you go and drop one from here on out, you'll still be in the playoffs. I think that, will they win a natty? I don't think so. I think they're just limited at what they can do in certain spots on the ball. But they're a fun team to watch. They're gritty. They're tough. They're entertaining. Georgia Tech, great weekend, great year so far. They put on a historic season, so good for them. And I like Haynes King. I mean, who doesn't like the guy? He's tough. He's gritty. He's fun. He plays when he's hurt. He's a team guy. So congrats to them. I hope they do well. And honestly, I see them making the playoffs. Full transparency, I think they make the playoffs in this year. Bad weekend, Missouri. You lose a tough game to Vanderbilt. You played a gritty game last week against Auburn. You get beat against Bama in a tough game. You throw a Hail Mary that comes up literally inches short of tying you the game. So you suffer your second loss in 3 weeks after being undefeated. But the more damaging and more brutal thing comes whenever your quarterback, Bo Pribula, suffered a season-ending leg injury. I hate seeing players get hurt. I know that Missouri is not the best team in the world. They're not world beaters, but I hate to see a guy get hurt like that. In a tight game, you're trying to grit something out for your team, trying to push a ball into the end zone, and you end up with a season-ending injury. And with injuries like that, people will tell you it lasts a lot longer than 1 year. That's the kind of injury that can end careers. So I'm hoping that's not the case for Pribula. It's just a tough spot to be in for Missouri as a whole. A couple of weeks ago, before Bama, you were looking at a playoff spot. You lose a tough one to Bama. You end up Now your margins are a little more thin as far as leeway if you can lose games or not. You go lose literally, I mean, inches with them tying this game against Vanderbilt. So it's a tough spot for them. They have a bye week coming up next, so they can maybe try and sort out a quarterback. And then you have Texas A&M in a couple of weeks. So it doesn't get any easier. I feel bad for Missouri. I really do. And I hope all the best for Prbula. Good weekend, BYU. I'll be transparent. I did not pick them to win this game against Iowa State. They went out, they gritted out a 41-27 win from behind. They're now 8-0. They're 5-0 in Big 12 play. I think Iowa State gets the win here. I thought they would. Full transparency, but congrats to BYU. They're in a great spot at this point. Undefeated on the year. Very much in playoff contention. You have a couple of tough games coming up. You have Texas Tech. You have Cincinnati. So it's not an easy route into the playoffs. And if you're a team like BYU with the schedule you play, you don't get as much leeway as a team like Bama or Georgia or Tennessee. So those wins versus losses will be a lot more important. If you end up with one loss to Texas Tech, I still see you making playoffs. But if you drop two, if you drop one to Tech and drop one to Cincinnati, anything like that, the margins are thin. But I think BYU is a good football team. And I can very much see them getting over the hurdle and into playoff contention. Bad weekend at UCLA. After finding something of a revival at UCLA, they started this season awful, like everybody knows, fired everybody. They were the laughing stock of the college football world, and then they passed that honor on to Penn State by beating them. They got beat handily at the hands of a good Indiana team. Final 56-6. UCLA was never up for. They were never going to win this game. I won't say they weren't up for it. They didn't seem up for it from the surface. But UCLA is a good football team, and good football teams can make mediocre football teams look very bad. And this UCLA team looked very bad. They look like they have the past. They look like they did at the start of the season. You could have played this game 1,000 times. UCLA was never going to win this game. Imaliava went 13 for 27, 113 yards and 2 picks, including a pick 6. I think UCLA is better than what they showed on the surface coming into this year. The first 3 games that they played, I think they're better than that, just based on a personnel standpoint, a coaching standpoint. Those guys want to play and they want to be there. But whenever you're not clicking and don't play your best and you come up against a good team who is clicking and is playing very well, you can get results like this. I don't think it's the end for UCLA in their season. I still think that they could potentially make a bowl game, which if you would have said that 4 weeks ago, you would get laughed at. I think they still can, but this was a big step back for them. That's it for Good Week and Bad Weekend. I love doing this segment. I think it just covers a little bit of college football in general, and now we can do a little more of a deep dive into a couple of games I really want to talk about. And we had some great games this weekend.